So today's topic is going to be risk management. An overview. So first of all, we begin by defining risk. What is risk? It is exposure to uncertainty, a chance of a loss or adverse outcome as a result of an action, inaction, or external effect. Okay? And what do we currently mean by risk exposure? State of being exposed or vulnerable to risk. Okay, the extent to which an entity is sensitive to underlying risk. Next keyword that I'm going to define is risk management. So it's a process by which an organization or individual defines the level of risk to be taken and measures the level of risk taken and adjusts the latter toward the former to maximize companies' portfolio value. When I say I want to maximize the portfolio value, I want to maximize the individual satisfaction or utility. Okay. So the different components of risk management. We want to quantify and understand risk exposure. Deciding how and why to have exposure, how much risk a participant can bear, mitigating risk by tailoring exposure. All right. Let's have a look at the risk management framework. Okay. Let's look at the risk management framework. Okay, we have risk governance, so this is a top-down process. Directing risk management to align with enterprise, sets risk tolerance for an organization. Okay, you make an overall assessment of a company's risk position. You take a centralized approach to risk management, sometimes a firm-wide risk. You focus on health and value. Next part is going to be risk identification and measurement. You're actually here tracking risk, exposures, and calculating risk metrics. When we talk of risk metrics, we're basing ourselves on value at risk, conditional value at risk, stress testing, scenario analysis. We can also talk about Greeks here. The next one is going to be risk infrastructure. Okay, so when we talk of risk infrastructure, we talk of risk capture, database, analytic models, stress or scenario analysis. So, upon the request of my colleagues, I'm going to write the word. I'm going to create a short form for the word analysis because that's how I write it. So that was for risk infrastructure. Define policies. And processes. Okay, this when you're looking for business practice, processing data, controlling cash flows and due diligence on investments. Risk monitoring. And mitigation. You're continually reviewing and reevaluating in the face of changing risk exposures and risk drivers. And then you have, lastly, communication. Okay, clear and timely reporting. Of risk metrics. Lastly, you want to come up with strategic analysis and integration. I'm going to keep the short form for analysis like this. Okay, this is to improve the strategy. That was for risk management. Now I'm going to explain to you what is risk governance. Okay, when we talk of risk framework, we are actually going for enterprise risk management, risk appetite, or risk tolerance. Risk tolerance is actually the amount an investor is willing and able to bear to achieve an investment goal. Okay, so what are the risk tolerance decision? We want to know what shortfalls within an organization could cause a business to fail, or at least to fail to achieve some critical goals. Shortfall within a business. And next, uncertain forces that organization is exposed to. And now I'm going to define what is risk budgeting for you. Risk budgeting is allocating investment or asset by risk characteristic. You're establishing objectives for individuals or groups of decisions of an organization, taking into account allocation of an acceptable level of risk. So just write allocate investment and assets by risk characteristics. So short form for characteristics is this. By allocation of acceptable level of risk. Okay, so when we talk of risk drivers, you have board and the management. So the board will overview the goals, which are the risk tolerance and the risk budgeting. The strategies would be to allocate to risky activities and to define risk exposures. Okay, and let me just tell you the steps involved in risk governance. So you're going to establish an ERM, that is risk management framework. No, not an ERM, but a risk management framework. You're going to identify the risk, and measure the risk, and monitor the risk, report. This is a form of communication, actually. And strategic analysis. Okay. Let me just define for you some financial risk. What do we mean by financial risk? First, there is market risk. What we mean by this, we mean movement of interest rates. Stock prices. Exchange rates. And commodity prices. And then we have credit risk. So this is the loss caused by a counterparty. Counterparties, debtors, upon failure to make promised payment. And then another financial risk is liquidity risk. A financial instrument, it is a risk that a financial instrument cannot be purchased or sold without a significant concession in price. Due to the size of the market. Okay. Having talked about this, these are the financial risk. You can also have non-financial risk. I'm using the word fin as a short form for financial here. So that entails all sorts of risk, settlement risk, a legal risk, among others. You might have compliance risk, regulatory, accounting and tax risk, model risk, tail risk. Okay, we get those two in value at risk mostly. Operational risk, that is the risk of loss from a company's system. For example, you may have hackers and viruses, accident fraud, a rogue trader or bad weather. Solvency risk that an entity does not survive or exceed because it runs out of cash even though it might be otherwise solvent. Now let's talk about risk metrics. The first risk metric that you can have is the standard deviation, which is a measure of dispersion in a probability distribution. You have beta risk, measure of sensitivities returns to the return on the market portfolio. Okay. So where you use the beta risk, you use it in the CAPM equation. Derivative risk. There's a video where I show for delta, the delta of the call option. Okay, these are for the Greeks. You have delta, gamma, vega, rho. You also have duration, approximate sensitivity of a security to change in interest rates. And then you have value at risk, a money measure of the minimum value of losses expected during a specified time period at a given level of probability. For example, let's say that value at risk is 3 million at 5% confidence interval. So that would mean you have a minimum potential loss with 5% probability. Okay? Or alternatively, that would also mean a maximum potential loss of 3 million 95% of time. Okay, in the specific time period given. And then you also have extreme value theory. Focusing on external events. We could use along with value at risk, we could be using a scenario analysis. This one, I've written it full here. So this is using a set of conditions and creating different scenarios. Okay. Scenario analysis and stress testing. And then we talk of credit risk. You have value at risk, you have CVaR, probability of default. Okay. Now let's talk about another concept, which is risk modification. What I want to have in risk modification is risk prevention and avoidance. Okay, so this is for self-insurance, risk transfer, and risk shifting. Okay, and next, risk acceptance. You're accepting the level of risk that you're getting. You go for self-insurance or diversification. Diversification especially happens if you're having a basket of portfolios, a basket of assets, a basket of securities. Okay, now we're going for risk transfer. You're passing risk to another party by insurance. Deductible. Okay, self-insurance, a surety bond or a fidelity bond. And next we have risk shifting. Change in distribution of risk outcomes by forward commitments or contingent claims. So this happens when you're doing hedging. Forward, short form for forward, and contingent claims. Okay. So we shall end here for today. Thank you for watching. And that's all for today.